Congratulations on the brand new album, because I've had a chance to take a listen to it, but our listeners haven't yet. But congratulations on such a fantastic new album.
Thank you very much.
So I was wondering if you could start off by telling me, or telling our listeners, a little bit about what they can expect from this album. They haven't had a chance to take a listen, so what can they expect to hear on this album?
Well, our major influence is, I think, In Flames and Arch Enemy, or bands like Arch Enemy and In Flames from the late 90s and early 2000s. And we play reminiscent on this, but we try to keep it simple from the sound. So we have 2 guitars, a bass, vocals, and the drummer, of course. We try to use as less effects, like we only use noise gates and high gain amplifiers.
That's resulted in a more natural sound. Is that something that you guys had talked about before you went into the studio?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we talked about it before the last album. I think that's sort of the red line we follow to keep the sound as simple as possible and as natural as possible.
Now, the last album, when that came out in 2020, that had got such great reviews, and it had a lot of people who fell in love with the album. Did you feel pressure heading into the studio to work on this album because the first album had done so well?
We felt pressure because for the first album we had about 6 years to think about how it sounds, and then we had the opportunity to get in contact with a label and MDD Records, and so we didn't have so much time to finish this, but we're very satisfied with the result.
There was a pandemic in there as well, which probably wouldn't have helped. Michael, how did you guys go during the pandemic and having to work on the album during that time?
It was difficult to work all together because we couldn't go to the rehearsal room and we couldn't play together. But I think we did the best we could do. We wrote new songs. We talked together via the internet, and we were sending us all the tracks. And as soon as it was possible again to get to the rehearsal room, we finished all the songs. And it was difficult, but I think we made it very good.
Yeah. What kind of things were inspiring the tracks on this album as well? Like, we were in a pretty crazy time, and the world's been a pretty crazy world the last few years. What kind of things were inspiring these tracks, especially the lyrics?
So we are personally very critic people. We discuss very much about actual topics, and it was always clear that the lyrics would be very dark and critical, and we found the album title Age of Dysphoria because every track and every lyrical topic is about some dysphoric mood, so that you can feel today, but it's also a general view on society, and sometimes very, very personally pictures. It's for us. It was always clear that there is some darker mood in the lyrics than in the music. That it's I think
that dark atmosphere really comes across on the album when you're listening to it. Was that a difficult atmosphere for you to create in the studio?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't very difficult because I came from my former bands were more from the black metal scene, and it's very natural for me to create this with the vocals. That's not difficult at all. No.
Awesome. So how did you both feel about the recording process? Did you both feel that the recording process went pretty well? Because like you said, you were trying to put this together in the aftermath of a pandemic. So how did you both feel that recording process went in the studio?
Well, when we went to the studio, the whole pandemic topic wasn't that actual, and the recording process was very straightforward. We worked with Norbert Leitner, who is a friend of us and a great sound engineer. He's a very calm person, and the whole recording process was like going meeting a friend and working together. We started to program the drums. And then we recorded the guitars and the bass, and afterwards we recorded the drums with the real drums, and Michi finished up, and it was quite forward. The sound is great, yeah, and I think our next album will be done almost the same way, but we have lessons learned, of course.
We see an evolution of your music here. Like, your music, it has become its own thing. It's so different to what other people are doing. There's a harshness there, but there's also kind of playful melodies and things in there as well. Was that something that you all discussed beforehand, that continuation of that evolution of your music to the point where you have become different to anything else that's out there?
I think there's no major receipt about this. The major difference is that Stella, my colleague on the guitar, was also a songwriter on this album. Last one I wrote myself. And I think this album is much more playful and sophisticated, especially the song structure and songwriting.
So tell us a little bit about the artwork as well. I'm looking at the cover right now, and I understand that was put together by someone called Armin Stoker. Tell us a little bit about that artwork and how Armin came about doing that artwork, and what was your first thoughts when you looked at it, because it's spectacular.
Yeah, Armin is a friend of us, and we worked together with him at the first album also. And he came to some of our shows, and at one day we talked to him, and he said he would like to design album covers. And so we met and discussed for the first album, and we were it was so great, and we were amazed, yes, at the first album, and then there was no question that he should do the second album cover as well.
Yeah, we have to say it's his first album cover ever.
Wow.
He's a great artist.
Definitely. So how do you guys feel now that the album is about to come out? Are you excited that it's about to come out, or are you nervous to see how people are going to accept the album?
Yeah, I'm pretty nervous. I'm pretty nervous now, and excited and frightened because so many things happen at once. We get two interviews a week at the moment, mostly written. This is our first live interview. And the label does a great job. We didn't think that so much can happen within 1 or 2 months. It's very exciting.
Well, it's an amazing album, so I don't think you've got anything to worry about. I think our listeners who loved your first album are going to love this album as well. And I guess that leads to the question, what's your plans going forward now? With the album about to come out, what are your plans for the rest of this year and going into next year?
So we plan to do shows. So we have our album release show in November, And then we do some shows for the rest of the year, and we are trying to get in touch with bookers and promoters also outside of Austria, because we never played outside of Austria, actually, and try to play live as many gigs as possible in 2023.
Well, we would love to see you guys in Australia at some stage. Like I said, our listeners fell in love with your first album. Songs like Colossal Collapse just kept on getting requested from our listeners, so we're sure that they are going to love.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. We've been playing your music on our show now for about 2 years, and our listeners have loved it. So they're definitely looking forward to this album, and we can't wait to be able to play singles off this one as well.
Oh, that's very cool.
Perfect. It's nice to hear, because we didn't know.
Yeah.
3 years ago, nobody thought that somebody in Australia would be interested in our music, but no. Wow.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, what would you like to say to people out there who are eagerly anticipating the new album? Is there something you would like to say to them?
Well, we hope you like it.
And thank you for the support, and thank you for liking it. So it's great pleasure and honor to us that our music is played and there are listeners out there. That's very, very great pleasure.